Welcome everyone, welcome to the public and to the media, welcome councillors and staff. The first item on the agenda is apologies. I have apologies from Councillor Wiley and Councillor Bezek. I'll move from the chair that those apologies be accepted. Second to Councillor Staines. Discussion. All those in favour please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Confirmation of the agenda. Now, what I can tell you is that by my reckoning, one person has come off the agenda, that is Mr. Cook, apparently will not be here, and Mr. Wilson will be standing in for Mr. Ivan Court. But apart from that, the agenda is the same. That's my understanding of it. Right. Thank you. So I'll move that the agenda, as I've just explained, be confirmed. Second to Councillor Staines. All those in favour please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. And I'll further move from the chair that the minutes of the meeting of the public forum held on 9th of December 2013 be confirmed as a true and correct record. Second to Councillor Staines. Is there any discussion on that? Right, I'll put it. All those in favour please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Right, on to the first item on the agenda, which is getting Dunedin active. Ruth Zinert. Welcome, Ruth. You are speaking on getting Dunedin active strategy and Move Me campaign, and 10 minutes and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, thank you for the introduction, Your Worship. Yes, my name is Ruth Zinert. I am indeed the project manager for Getting Dunedin Active and the associated campaign, which is Move Me, which is what I'm here to talk to you about today. I last came and spoke at this forum in November about why having a physically active population is really vital to achieving many of the goals that the Council has identified, particularly around social wellbeing and around economic development. So we talked about what the evidence tells us that a physically active population experiences, not just improved physical and mental health, but also improved social connectedness, lower crime rates, higher educational achievement and greater leadership and productivity. So I'm here today to follow up on that presentation and let you know what we're doing to promote physical activity and active lifestyles to Dunedin residents and how you can support that work. Dunedin City was an early adopter of the idea that a physical activity strategy had much to offer. And as far as we know, Getting Dunedin Active is the longest running physical activity strategy in the country, with now over 20 different partners implementing that strategy and all trying to achieve the same vision of an active city. During the scoping phase of that strategy, however, a significant amount of feedback came from the community telling us that people didn't know how or where to find local information about being active, or they weren't aware of much of the infrastructure, facilities, the green spaces, the tracks and trails that already existed. And so subsequently, the concept of the Move Me campaign was born. Move Me has been designed to draw together into one place all local activity-related information. The aim of the campaign is to increase the number of Dunedin adults who are regularly active. It's based around our website, www.moveme.org.nz, and our Facebook page. We don't provide physical activity opportunities. We're a promoter and supporter of everything that's already happening and of the benefits of being active, and we do that by making it as easy as possible to find information. Of particular relevance to Council, perhaps, is the work that Move Me does around promoting local infrastructure. We have an enviable physical environment in Dunedin with a multitude of opportunities to be active, and it's exciting that we're continuing to build on that with the likes of the South Dunedin Cycle Network and the Harbourside Pathway. One aspect of Move Me's work then is to ensure that all these spaces are being used, and this is just one example. This is the Botanic Garden early on a weekend morning. And that previous slide was last year. This slide shows you this year. So if you go to the Botanic Gardens at 10 to 8 on a Saturday morning now, you'll find a group of people like this milling about, ready to launch into a 5-kilometre run around the lower and the upper garden, courtesy of Park Run, which is an initiative that we've been instrumental in facilitating. And in fact, I just heard this morning that they had record numbers this past Saturday with 72 runners in the gardens. The one event that we do organise is a Have a Go Day at the Edgar Centre every September. So one thing we do know is that for a physically active lifestyle to be sustainable, it has to be enjoyable. So we work hard to help Dunedin residents find the thing that they enjoy doing. For the Have a Go Day, we organise numerous activity providers. Last year we had in excess of 20 to all get together under one roof. The event is totally free for the public to come along and attend, and over the course of 3 or 4 hours they can try anything from judo to Pilates to Zumba and anything in between. So this is just some of what we're doing, getting new users of existing spaces and infrastructure, as well as raising awareness of new opportunities. To conclude, I would like to offer our sincere thanks for the financial support that Council provides that allows this campaign to stay on its feet, and also for your willingness to understand the role that physical activity plays in supporting core Council work. But this is where I'm going to ask for a bit more. The potential of the Move Me campaign is huge, but if it is going to realise its potential, we need people like you to throw your weight behind this initiative and become champions of the cause. So I'm asking you to please visit our website, become familiar with the work that we are doing, visit our Facebook page and like it, sign up to our newsletter, even invite us to come and speak about physical activity and what having a more active community can mean for Dunedin's future. And if you're already a believer in what we're doing, then we would love you to wear one of our t-shirts. We will give you one for free. They do come with a bit of a caveat or a restriction, I guess, however. We have had the council lifts program such that if Move Me t-shirt goes into a lift, they will stop and you will be required to leave and take the stairs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ruth. Questions, councillors? Anyone have any questions? Councillor McTavish.
Ruth, the Park Run partnership, is that being coordinated by Move Me, or is, when you say facilitated, is there another agency which is running that?
Yeah, there's an external agency. So Park Run's actually a global movement. It started in the UK, I think. So Dunedin is the 5th Park Run, 4th or 5th in New Zealand. Apparently got the best course, and yeah, the numbers have just far exceeded any of our expectations.
Because it's only been going since December, is that right?
January.
January,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, right.
I think we've had more than 50 runners every week.
Yeah, right. Massive. Awesome, thanks.
Councillor Carroll.
What sort of structure are you when you say you're in partnership with a whole lot of people? How does that sort of work?
So Getting Dunedin Active has over 20 different partners. So you can see Getting Dunedin Active is the umbrella strategy for this campaign, and then Move Me exists underneath that. So I'm the project manager for Move Me. I'm employed by council, but I'm a contractor, and I work with all of those Getting Dunedin Active partners to make Move Me happen. So it's a separate, standalone campaign.
Further questions, councillors? There are none. Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Mr. Ross, your timing is impeccable because you're our next speaker. I didn't see any point in letting you sit down over there when you were going to sit down over here immediately.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you all today. I wish to labour a point that I've previously made to Council, but there's a lot of new members here, so I thought I'd have another go. Personality traits, self-confidence, etc., attitudes to business risk differ widely in different people. At one end of the scale, you've got the entrepreneurial type, They're a self-starter, they're usually self-employed, they're right of centre, they believe that rewards come from personal effort. At the other end of the scale, you have the conservative followers who tend to be employees, left of centre, and they believe that rewards come from time served, irrespective of outcome. The first group are inclined towards innovation, logic, time and cost-saving measures. The second group value job security and tenure of employment. Now, when you get these people, you find that the extreme end of the second group tend towards university employment, education, hospitals, public service, because that's where you get those traits. They have a timid, conservative decision-making view, and they do what we do because that's what we've always done. Whenever there is a choice, they will take the safe, easy option, irrespective of long-term cost. Not only can they not correctly assess risk, but the mere thought of doing so terrifies them. This is the reason you get people taking their kids to school in four-wheel drives. They believe the chances of the kid being abducted is greater than being involved in a four-wheel drive accident. Clearly it isn't. You mustn't take all your financial advice from in-house for this very reason. They won't manage debt, they will buy swaps because it's a safe, easy way. I want to tell you a little bit about myself to give you an idea of where I'm coming from. Years ago, I realised that insurance companies cover the events that are unlikely to happen, but they don't cover the things that are likely to happen. In fact, they make them exclusions. I decided that contents insurance consists of treasures which you might want and stuff, but you only get burgled once every 10 years, and it's cheaper to buy new stuff than it is to pay the insurance premiums. And you can't replace the treasures. So I thought to myself, why don't I insure myself? So I decided to ditch contents insurance. I increased the house excess drastically, so I was only covered for large events. And then I thought, I need to sell something to make a fund for myself in the event of something happening. But wait, I don't actually need to sell that thing unless the thing happens. I only need to nominate it. Now I've lost my place. So from that point onwards, I've been paying my insurance premiums to D. Ross Insurance Company. I've built up a fund. I make claims against myself when I need to. I don't have to pay any extra for insurance fraud or carelessness. Now, no house contents insurance. I now have no house contents, income replacement, health or life insurance. I do it all through my own fund. This also serves two purposes. You can make it a retirement fund. Now, where are we going with this? You can eliminate risks in your house by checking your wiring and everything. I went to insure sprinklers, and I thought that's a good idea to mitigate the insurance, but the hassle of getting a permit to insure sprinklers at the council was so difficult. I said to the person, do you not want people to insure sprinklers? And he said, just like the other polyester trouser wearing, glue shoed conservative types, that's the way it is. But surely, do you want people to insure sprinklers or not? The two large insurance companies this year announced 30 and 17% increases in profit, even with the Christchurch costs. The DCC has suffered massive premium rises. The DCC is perfectly placed to insure itself. You are unlikely to lose all your assets at once, and in the odd event of that happening, you can borrow, which you've done in the past. Just as you use depreciation to fund replacement, you can also use this as an insurance fund. Pay the premiums to the same fund instead of to an insurance company. This brings me on to another fund. The Waipori Fund produces income to reduce rates, but at the cost of greater long-term capital gains which are sacrificed. The Waipori Fund is incorrectly managed. It is a fund that exists in perpetuity, so you have the perfect chance to make that a long-term capital growth fund instead of an income fund. All it's going to cost you is the yearly income but in return for that, you will get much higher capital gains. When these capital gains occur, you simply liquidate that capital and apply it to your debt mounted. So if you think long term, you will actually be gaining more by sacrificing that yearly income and treating it as a capital fund. The global financial crisis and finance company losses scared mums and dads investors. There is now buckets of conservative non-thinkers' money looking for a safe investment. Many public companies have smaller tranches of bonds than our debt. The DCC should have been issuing local government stock at the time when interest rates were at 30-year lows. It is still not too late to do this. There is a mindset too. Instead of being a customer subservient to banks, if you issue your own stocks, you are the issuer and the people loaning it to you become the customers, and it's a slight subtle change of mindset. You don't have to be a taker of rates on offer. If you adopt this attitude when you visit your own bank and think of them as the customer, you will also have much more success dealing with them. Hedging, swaps, etc. If banks come up with a product such as derivatives, it is not to help us. Any product pushed by banks, you can bet your bottom dollar, and it often will be, is to benefit the banks. It's not to, swaps aren't to benefit us. All those farmers that are in trouble at the moment, swaps are not benefiting them. It's just a coward's way of looking at financial management. If you have no expertise, maybe then you would look at things like that. But we have a Treasury Department. So why is our Treasury Department not tasked with managing our borrowing and managing our debt and managing our investment? Why do we have a Treasury Department and still buy swaps as a belt and braces thing? Why don't we get Treasury Department to manage this for us and stop these derivatives buying? The objection raised to this is often we are dealing with other people's money, and we must be careful because it's not our money, it's other people's money. Yet throughout the length of New Zealand, councils have wasted gigantic amounts of other people's money on crazy schemes. Yet in this regard, they're very conservative. And it is really quite easy to manage these financial matters. It seems complicated, but it is easy. Have I got time for another couple of things?
Time's expired.
You've got about 30 seconds. When you're listening to this on television, the creaking chairs, coughs and shuffling papers are louder than the volume. I suggest we get a staff member to CRC all the chairs, and I suggest we have some way of turning the microphones off when the people aren't talking. I don't know if you've listened to this on Channel 9, but the sound is absolutely terrible. And the question that's been raised lately of paying for cultural things. If you're a member, you paid a subscription and you don't pay the same amount as non-members. Ratepayers are members. When I go to the Auckland Museum, they say, "Are you a ratepayer?" So, well, I am in Dunedin. No, but here, they say, "All right, $10 then." I perfectly accept that. Naturally, I expect to pay because I'm in another place. I can't understand all this discussion about the exaggerated concern about the number of free legs walking in and out our cultural institutions. Why is it so important that we raise the number of people attending our cultural institutions for nothing? If you're a ratepayer, you've paid. If you go to Te Papa, you're a member because as a taxpayer you've contributed to it. But someone from Auckland or Christchurch hasn't contributed to our museum, and they would perfectly understand paying for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, councillors? Would appear there are none. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Wilson and Mr. Court, I understand you wish to come up together and then Mr. Wilson will speak first, is it correct? Yeah. Oh, Mr. Court. Anyway, do both come up. So, feel free to speak in any order you wish. I may have got a long way.
Good afternoon, councillors and your worship. I'm Alan Court, one of the late Bert Court's sons. I just wish to speak about some of the promises and that were made to my father regarding a water scheme or water connections. He resided in this area for about 60 years. He bought lot 1 about 55 years ago. That was his first piece of land. In some ways, he was his own worst enemy, but he lived in the era where things were done with word of mouth and handshake. That's how deals were done. I was present over on lot 1. I was mucking around with the horses this day, and a guy from the DCC arrived in a suit and he was talking to my father. The water scheme hadn't been built at that stage, and I wasn't paying that much attention to their conversation, but as the guy was leaving, he turned around and said to my father, "Remember to let us know where you want the connections put." And I pricked up my ears and I said after him, "What the hell's that all about?" And he said, "They're going to bulldoze a big track through there so they can put the pipes into the steep gully." He said, "I want water, they want the track." So he said, "We made a deal." That was my first encounter on hearing what was going on. The second time, I can't remember how long afterwards, but the pipes had definitely been laid at that time, and I was up. When I arrived at the house in Hillingdon Street, I went into the kitchen and I could hear loud voices going on the lounge, so I stayed out of it. They weren't saying good morning or good afternoon. It was a bit more in depth than that. But as the guy left, he had to come from the lounge via the kitchen to get out. And as he was leaving, the father said to him as he was leaving, "What about the water?" And the guy said, "I haven't forgotten about it. It'll be done soon." But soon never came. And I can remember getting on to my father, because I was a motor vehicle insurance assessor at that stage, and everything had to be done in writing. I was probably about 28, 30 years of age. Everything had to be done in writing. Everything had to be, all the important things, declarations and things, had to be signed by JPs, and everything had to be done properly. So I got on to my father and said, "You should have this in writing. It should be done properly." And his reply to me was, "He's a good fella. It's my land, I'll deal with it my way." In other words, he told me to mind my own business. But I know he's been arguing with the DCC for about 40 odd years. And in the latest report, I noticed one of the DCC staff have said that something 40 years old loses relevance. We were also told, up until recently, that the DCC had no record of anything about my father discussing water with them at all. But I noticed in this report that came out on Friday that in 1991 the DCC have found that he did have a conversation with them about the water, and also that he was seeking rates relief because of the infrastructure through his land. According to the DCC, nothing transpired after this, but I know that up until 10 years ago, he was on their backs, on the phone, quite a lot. I can't recall how many times, but I know he was. And I just find it difficult to comprehend that the DCC have got no records. They told us that they had none at all, and now they've found one that goes back to 1991. Well, that's not 40 years, it's only 23 years ago. And you've only got to think about it anyway. If someone is going to get a horrible, ugly, zigzag track, which is no use to us at all, bulldozed through their property, wouldn't they want something for it? Would they say, no, just go ahead and do it. Make a big scar on our land, it'll be right. It just doesn't, common sense tells you that there was more to it than that. Even if you weren't, none of you were there to hear the conversation. I was. But I'm just saying, if common sense prevails, you should realise that people don't get anything for nothing, including the DCC. To say that the track is of use to us, it's of no use to us at all. It's too steep. You have difficulty walking up and down it. Never mind, you can't even get a motorbike up and down. It's no use at all. So, and prior to that track going there anyway, we made our own walking track through there, and we kept it clear, of course, for years. Something that the DCC, since they've actually put that pipeline in, I've never known them to clear the pipeline along the back of Hillingdon Street. We've always done it. And a couple of years ago, we spent a lot of money. While this resource consent was going through, we spent a lot of money and cleared all that track for the DCC. But we don't get any thanks for that. It also says in that report something about perceived precedent. And it says some agreements made at the time pipes were laid, some agreements were made with the landowner when the pipes were being made. And another one says some were made as part of informal agreement between staff and landowner. So arrangements of this type were not unheard of. And this is one of these types of arrangements. When we went for resource consent, we were told that there were no water connections off that pipeline at all. Therefore, we went for tank water. But we were across there with the DCC solicitor and Colin Wetherill, and we pointed out to him that where the pipeline runs up Thurstein Street, which is just out of our gateway at Pleasant Place, we said, look at it, it's absolutely shocking. The gorse is 3 to 4 metres high. If the DCC had, we've cleared it, the other piece along the back of Hillingdon Street, because they walked along there with me. And we showed them the shocking state it was in, and we said, we suspect there's fire hydrants up in there somewhere, but we don't know. And the next thing, they cleared it. Colin Wetherill and the solicitor must have got together and it cleared it. At that stage, the water connections to 2 houses were discovered. And we knew then that what the DCC had been telling us wasn't correct. And we also, at that stage, also wanted our connection, the Pleasant Place housing site, to come from there. Apart from the fact that it was promised to my father, that's another issue. It says in that report that we were seeking 2 connections from the distribution main. We did initially, but I talked to Karen Cinzario a few times, and it was decided, and she said to me that it was possible to have it at the North Road end from the reticulation pipe, not the main pipe. And I said, well, that's fine. We don't care if it comes from there or the main pipe, as long as there's water. And she was quite happy with that. And I thought that part would have been approved anyway, but it wasn't. The one in Pleasant Place is a different story altogether, because the housing platform is up high, and the only reticulation that I can find is in Birchwood Avenue, and there'd simply be no pressure. It has to come from up there where McLaughlin has got his water connection coming off that pipeline. And I note the DCC are concerned about failures that one more connection would make to that pipeline. I don't know, but with all that gorse and that growing on there, if there was a failure, they wouldn't have been able to get into service it anyway. Not for a couple of days, until they cleared it all. So, one minute their pipe is very sacred, and the next minute they don't care whether it's overgrown with gorse or whatever, and they can't even get at it. Things just don't add up. The 2 connections that have been there, one's been there for 40 years, one's been there for 20 years. As far as I'm aware, and I don't really know about this because I wasn't aware the connections were even there, but I haven't seen anyone up there working on the pipeline, so I assume that those old connections have not given any trouble at all. And if we got one connection up there, it would be done with the latest materials and technology, so I doubt whether there'd be a problem, and there could only ever be one more connection from there, because we're only allowed one building platform. So I can't see that one more connection there, especially as it was promised, is going to make an iota of difference to the DCC and cause a problem with the failure rate. The ones that are likely to fail are the ones that have been there for 20 and 40 years. I'm just sorry to know that my father's had all these problems over this length of time, which just goes to show that you never do things with a handshake. I'm not criticising Mayor Cole, but I noticed through reading the paper that in December 2012 there was water supplied to a Waitati property that wasn't within the proper water boundary. And Mr. Cole's comment in the paper was, the water system was set up to serve the community, and although the application posed some risk to the council, granting it would not affect anyone. All I can say is, I hope Mr. Cole has the same mindset today. This is the 4th year now that we've been going to try and get everything resolved to this property. It's a very long time. We spent thousands of dollars clearing all the gorse off this property with a a thing with a bucket on it, not a bulldozer, digger with a bucket on it, cost us thousands of dollars. With all this mucking around in the interim, trying to get things through, the gorse has come away again. But it's not big enough to get that machine in to grab it and pull it out. So now we're faced with the expense of getting a helicopter in to spray it. So it's costing us heaps and heaps of money. We just want to get things finalised and move on. And I'm sure the council does too. Well, that's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Court. Do you wish to take questions now or after Mr. Wilson has spoken?
I can take them now.
Questions of Mr. Court? Councillor Newman.
Thank you, Worship. Alan, could you just clarify for me, you're requesting one of the connections to come from the reticulated network and the other one from the distribution network, correct?
Yes.
And the one from the distribution network is it lot 1 with the proposed sites B and C, which is only going to be one of those platforms?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Court, I have a question regarding the clearing of the gorse. The gorse is on your land, is that correct? Why do you want it cleared?
Because there's fire hydrants and things around there, and it was also a reasonable fire rate from the houses in Hillington Street.
Right. But what I'm asking is, what's the connection between the water line and the need to clear the gorse? Is there a connection?
Well, there is, because your pipe's right under it, and if you've got to service it, how are you going to get to it?
Well, isn't that the council's problem? Have they asked you to clear it?
But no, it is the council's problem, but they never did it. And in the new resource consent, they said that they are going to clear it. But we'll see whether they have it. We don't mind clearing. We're pretty easy to get along with. The brother of Christchurch might not be, but he's not here. We're the ones that
I'm not being critical of you, I'm just trying to ascertain who's deciding that the gorse needs cleared on your land and for whose benefit it is.
Well, it's not for our benefit, because we used to have, and we made our own track through there, which was reasonably narrow, but that's all we need, to be able to just ride a horse through there and walk through there. That's all we need, because we can't take goods or anything through there, because I said at the other end, from one property to the other, because the other end is useless, you can hardly walk there. But the houses in Dunedin Street, we don't want them to go up and smoke either. We're just probably good neighbours.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a big section of water infrastructure in Philstone Street, which is absolutely covered in water. So let's do that.
Yeah. It's not now.
That's what you want to get.
Are there any further questions? Well, could I invite you, Mr. Wilson, to speak? You might just need to bring that microphone around a bit closer.
Yes, good afternoon everyone. My name is Charlie Wilson. I'm married to Glenys and thus a brother-in-law of Alan, Kevin and Ivan. You've asked us to articulate on why the council will not consider this proposal. It's going to set a precedent. Well, reason number one is that my late father-in-law, Bertie Cord, was not compensated for allowing the construction of a DCC water pipeline, as Alan has just intimated. Access through his property approximately 40 years ago. Reason number two is the fact that 2 properties are already connected to the distribution main, as Alan again has just quite correctly pointed out, right in the vicinity of our connection. My name is Charlie Wilson. I'm married to Glenys and thus a brother-in-law of Alan, Kevin and Ivan. You've asked us to articulate on why the council will not consider this proposal. It's going to set a precedent. Well, reason number one is that my late father-in-law, Bertie Cord, was not compensated for allowing the construction of a DCC water pipeline, as Alan has just intimated. Access through his property approximately 40 years ago. Reason number two is the fact that 2 properties are already connected to the distribution main, as Alan again has just quite correctly pointed out, right in the vicinity of our connection request to our Lot 1 in Thilstein Street. It's the big overgrown legal unformed road, absolutely covered in gorse. The other connection we are applying for is located at the North Road end of the property, below the large concrete storage tank, and thus can be achieved from the existing water reticulation piping. That's already there, of course. And so with our request for these two connections to the existing infrastructure that is located inside our property, and whose draw-off will be insignificant when considering this infrastructure already serves 540 homes, as intimated in the report there, in the valley, we are not requesting much for the pipeline track and its maintenance by Bert and ourselves since his passing. Reason number 3 for non-precedent setting is that when undertaking the subdivision of the property, we have surveyed the section of piping, you'll see on the wee maps you've got in front of you there, in red is a wee section in red, is that when undertaking the subdivision of the property, we have surveyed the section of piping running through our property that has not been legally formalised. If our application today is successful, then this field survey work component will not be charged to the DCC. We will meet this cost, only leaving the water easement legalities, the office work, for the DCC to pay for. Apparently there were 7 applications made for and who received water connections from the DCC in the past year or so. These applicants being all outside the residential designated area. In the 38 years I've been married to Glenys, I've often heard Bert airing his displeasure at having all of the water infrastructure on his property and him not receiving any compensation, e.g. in the form of a rates relief or something like that for it. So I think it is only fair that the councillors accede to our request. Hopefully you will, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Mr Wilson. Does anyone have any questions of Mr Wilson? Councillor Thompson.
Do you have that large map?
Yes.
Can you just show me where the 2 current connections are? I can't understand all the notation on here. So, whereabouts are they on?
The connections that we wish to receive.
No, the two current connections that are running off the main.
Oh, they are adjacent to Part 46 there. See the wee note there, the DCC access track from Pleasant Place?
Yes.
There's 2 properties that are adjacent to Thilstein Street, on that section of Thilstein Street. Cindy King is one resident and the chap McLaughlin is the other.
I can show you a photo of the connection.
No, I'm just trying to get an idea of where they sit on this particular main, that's all, roughly. But you're saying that one of them's adjacent to where it says PT46?
Yes.
And the other one?
To the north. They're side by side, they're both adjacent to Part 46.
Okay, thank you.
And right where we want
and the pipeline runs through Thilstein Street.
Right, so just to clarify that zigzaggy blue line on Lot 1 is a track,
Yeah.
so the pipeline runs straight along.
It's a zigzag track to the DCC.
Yeah.
And the pipeline goes along down up to the
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
and where we want
Right. Okay.
that's what it was like before. Right? We'll make DCC clear that after the that's what it was like after they cleared it, and that's how we discovered these things.
Gotcha.
And that's the case.
Yep. Councillor McTavish.
Well, I was just wondering whether I'd be quite interested to see the photos of the connection point, but I don't know if other people would be in the same category. So
I'm just suggesting that they be given to Councillor Vincent Pope and then just handed round them.
That's the track that ECC cleared when we discovered it was there, and that's what the flight before.
In the meantime, are there any, Councillor Newton?
It's probably a question for either Mr Wilson or Mr Court, but I haven't got the consent decision in front of me, but are you able to share with us any conditions of that consent decision that prohibits any further subdivision of the, I think it's about 60 odd hectares in total of the 3 lots, and also are there any conditions that ask the applicant, as in the consent hearing applicant, to create a covenant over the native bush on the property?
Well, I can answer the one about native bush. We voluntarily put a covenant on 2 areas of native bush there, so it could not be cut down and destroyed, because we like native bush and native birds ourselves. So we did that voluntarily. It was being done.
And the approximate area of the bush, roughly?
Or I suppose it would be, both would total 5 hectares. Yeah, maybe a wee bit more. One's a large stand, a nice manuka stand, and the other one is an assortment of native bush. Probably would be.
Councillor Stones.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just trying to get my head straight with comments that are, or with the papers that we've got here. So this is showing lot 1, and I'm assuming this is lot 2. Which of those lots did your father own at the time that... So lot 1 was the one that the agreement, the verbal agreement was made for. You're asking for a connection to lot 1 and to lot 2. But the agreement was on lot 1.
Yeah, but he also had an agreement on lot 2, because what happened was, when he bought that land, I think it was a couple of years after the DCC put the pipeline through, he knew that the DCC did not have an easement through there. And the DCC only had an easement up to where the old tanks were. You see where that new easement is being created now? But we've had surveyed at our cost for the DCC. That red, that's where the DCC has not got an easement. And my father knew this, and he approached the DCC. And I said, don't worry about it, we can fix that, you can get water up there too.
Thank you.
So that's how that came about. And I also think there may have been, whether it was legal, illegal, or your workers did it, or under the table or whatever, I also think there may have been a water connection already there from those old, I think there was about 10 bitumen tank type paint tanks there. And I think there was a water connection from there over to the house. Whether it was legal or the DCC knew about it, or whether the old man gave him some of the workers a couple of sheep, I don't know. But I'm pretty sure there was water on there. Because I can remember when I was about 6 or 7 years of age having to go up and clear the creek, because they originally got water to the creek. But after that, I'm sure they got it from us. Maybe we owe the DCC money.
Any further questions? Councillor Wilson.
Mr Court, just taking your answer to the question from Councillor Staines, the purpose of extending the water pipe, that newly surveyed pipeline easement, would have been, I just understand that they went to the point which has got 61.46 on that plan, and then they extended it up on your, for the benefit of whom? Why did they extend that up? You know?
Just repeat that question
Well,
again, please.
sorry,
Councillor.
what you're saying is that they had a pipe, the council had a pipeline easement up to the point that's got 61.46.
Yes, yeah, with you.
And then what was the point of them laying just to understand the context of Mr. Court's answer then, what was the point of extending that pipeline further along?
Because,
Who benefited?
yes, who benefited? Well, the pipeline, the main distribution line runs from Evans Street, way up high, runs across down into Thirlstane Street at the western side of the plans as you look at it, runs along Thirlstane Street, and then it ran along where the red line is to where the start of the two black lines start, and that's where the 5 tanks were placed before the big concrete tank was built along at the reservoir site. So, yeah, I'm not sure how long that was before, that line was put in before the pipeline was extended along to the big concrete tank, the reservoir site. But yeah, for some reason, it was never formalised, that section of pipeline. You would have thought they would have done that first. If it was there first, you would have thought that would have been taken care of legally, but I suppose in those days just a handshake maybe and
I picked up the timing in the wrong order. I apologise for that. Thank you for
those old tanks, there was about 5 or 10 of them there. I don't think the water came from Evans Street. I think it came from Hillingdon Street, and they filled them at night when no one was using water, so that the people on Hillingdon Street could use them during the day. So I don't think that pipe that's there now was there then. I remember they used to get filled at night, and the people on Hillingdon Street had water through the day, because and they only virtually served Hillingdon Street and around that area, those old steel tanks anyway.
Yeah, well, that makes sense now too, doesn't it, because of that. The other structure was in first, and that other portion, the new portion has never been formalised for second, or maybe they thought it was covered with the first pipeline easement that was done back in 1970. Or maybe it was
no, it wasn't like that.
It
wasn't like that at all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. No further questions? Mr. Wilson, Mr. Court, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, and this one.
That brings us to the end of public forum. I'll call this to a close, and we will recommence at 2 o'clock. We'll commence council meeting at 2 o'clock.